welcome to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, a resource center located in Naperville for people in career transition. Career Center will bring human resource professionals and other experts together to provide job search tips to assist you as you search for your next success. Later on Career Center, Kristin Eccles will join me at the table to discuss what to expect from the interviewing process. But first, I am always happy to have join me at the table Youth and Family Services and Job Club Facilitator for the Community Career Center, Sarah Breithaupt, on the show. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's always good to have you. Now, you wear several hats, and
Yes.
let's talk about the hat you wear for Diehl Township.
Yes.
You're the Youth and Family Services Director there.
That's correct. So I'm a licensed professional counselor, but I specialize in career counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So people come to see me for personal general counseling of all kinds, as well as one-on-one career counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always interested in helping people with their career journeys
Mm-hmm.
and knowing how hard it is sometimes to be in transition.
Right.
And how difficult it is. I really wanted to get those clinical skills so I could help people with anxiety and the depression that can occur during job search, or if they have personal barriers or chronic conditions that we can help support them with.
Right. And I know, just speaking on behalf of our clients, you do a really good job working with our clients. And I know another hat that you wear is the Job Club Facilitator, and you do Job Club at the Community Career Center. You facilitate that one on Wednesdays, and then you also facilitate Job Club on the first Friday?
The last Friday of the month at Diehl Public Library at 10 a.m.
Okay.
We do networking first, and then we have a speaker typically, and then every Monday at the Woodridge Public Library at 10 a.m.
Okay.
We also have a resume group where we review any of your printed marketing materials for your search.
So you do a lot of things in a lot of different areas. So job seekers that are looking for you, it's easy to find where you are.
Yes, we're out in the community.
Diehl, and also in Naperville.
Absolutely.
And I know our job club, we meet every Wednesday at 10:30, and it's a couple hours. You meet and you talk about elevator speech. You learn what people are doing in the process of their job search. So you're going through a lot of things with them.
Absolutely. Every meeting, I like to start off with any announcements about upcoming workshops, presentations at the Community Career Center and out in the community, different resources that are available to them, career fairs, and I give time for everyone to give announcements as well. We celebrate anyone who has gotten a job. We call them landings, and hear what worked for them, and they give a hopeful message and inspiration to those still in search.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that is we see that almost weekly, not every week, but almost weekly, we have someone celebrating a recent landing, so that's always good to hear.
Yeah, that's great. We had one today. The week before we had 3.
Yeah. So it's always good to have those.
Yes, it is.
And I know in Job Club, the couple of things that you go through, and when you hear from job seekers, or you get those handbills.
Right.
So we want to talk about handbills a little bit, and I know you've seen a lot of handbills.
Right.
What is a handbill?
A handbill is a one-page document. It's different from a resume in that a resume is more about where you've been and the experiences you've had, whereas a handbill is about where you're going. And it's a very helpful, I say handbills are handy, it's a very helpful thing to, first for yourself to clarify what you're looking for and where and what you're targeting, but also for everybody else that you're networking with, particularly in a job club. It concretely summarizes and gives a high-level overview of what you want, the different job titles that you're interested in, because many jobs have more than one title, and we don't always know what all those titles are, or if you're looking for more than one type of job, and also your targeted employers. In that way, we can, it helps other people to help you, and give you, job leads, other potential employers you may not know about in similar industries.
And handbills, we need to be clear, are for networking. They're not for when you're going to meet a potential maybe hiring manager or someone, you don't want to provide that to them.
Right, because that shows them where else you're looking and what you're doing.
Right. And it's really important for someone to create a handbill, would you say?
I say it's very important, yeah. We don't require it in Job Club, but we highly recommend it. Everyone who does one, I think, further clarifies and cements what it is that they're really looking for. And it really is so helpful to people. And I find a lot of people take them with them, read them, and then contact and network further, you know, when other things come up that they want to pass on.
Yeah, and I think that one of the main things that's on there is those target companies. And so, again, if someone goes home and they think about their neighbor down the street who works at, you know, company A, if they see that as a potential target for someone, they're able to help make that connection.
Absolutely. So we tell people ideally have at least 10 on your resume. Sometimes they'll turn it onto the back and have 50.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be somebody knows somebody, even if the other people in Job Club are in search themselves.
I know one of the things we talk about at the Community Career Center is whether or not it's important to have a picture on your handbill. What do you think?
I think it is important because when people leave Job Club, I mean, Job Club can be 25, 30 some people. It can be hard to remember the face with the name. And sometimes we might have 2 or 3 Toms or 2 or 3 Mikes. And so it's really good to remind people who you are. I wouldn't recommend it, obviously, for a resume. You don't want to do that. But on a handbill, I think it's a good thing.
And you should treat that picture on your handbill like you would LinkedIn. It should be a professional picture, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know you have numerous opportunities at the Community Career Center for people to get their headshots taken.
When someone has an opportunity to meet with someone, at what point, you know, if they're meeting for an informational interview, at what point would they present either a resume or a handbill to that networking contact?
Right. I would recommend that they bring it with them unless the person wants some advanced information.
Okay.
But again, it's a good leave behind, as well as it's something that can help drive the conversation. Just like a portfolio might help drive the conversation in an interview. I would bring that rather than a resume. Oftentimes, if you bring a resume to an informational interview, the people think that you want them to review their resume, and that's not what you're there for.
So it really is just important to just bring that handbill.
Right.
And you mentioned 1 page. So with the exception of if you have, you know, a slew of target companies, you can add those on the back page.
Correct.
And it's very important to do that. I can't stress that enough, to have that handbill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about elevator speeches, because I know you know a lot about those. And what is an elevator speech?
Okay. An elevator speech is like if a handbill is a print advertisement, you know, a piece of your marketing collateral for your marketing campaign, selling yourself, then an elevator pitch is like a commercial. It's the shortest speech you'll ever give, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. At our Job Club, we give 2 minutes. And it's good for job clubs, it's good for career fairs, professional meetings that you go to. If you happen to start talking to somebody in line at Starbucks, you can quickly tell them what you're all about. Even, you know, going up in an elevator, whether it's a slow ride to the top of a high rise or it's an express elevator, you need to be able to give it very short and succinct, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You tell them your name. You tell them something that'll make you memorable, what we call a wow statement, something that makes you different from every other.
Makes you different, unique. What do you?
Right. You know, how you're different than every other accountant or administrative assistant out there. You give your target job titles, you target employers, a little bit about your skills and experience just to put things in context, and your name again.
You always come back to your name.
Yes, right.
So how do you determine if it's going to be 30 seconds or 2 minutes? I mean, do you have to make sure you're really kind of assessing the you know, your situation.
Right.
You know, if you're going, to your point, to the 30th floor of a high rise, you might have a little bit longer, but you also need to kind of read body language from the person you're talking to.
Absolutely, because people's attention fades very quickly, and my predecessor used to say the first 17 words are the most impactful, and then people's attention can drop off after that. So you want to make sure that you front load anything you're talking about. And you want to make sure that it's as familiar to you as your children's names or the last movie you saw, so that it doesn't sound rehearsed. And you can, you know, a lot of networking opportunities are unexpected or unplanned, and so you're able to put the information out there very quickly in a relaxed way.
In a relaxed way.
Yeah.
What makes an elevator pitch effective? Is it that wow statement? Is it, what are some things that make it effective?
I think if it's clear and concise about exactly what you're looking for, but I also encourage people to get creative, to maybe start off with a little story or a twist, something unexpected. We had one business analyst who talks about, I translate English into English because she can make things understandable between the business and technical sides of an organization. Somebody else described his company as the eHarmony of the auto industry because it's online kind of car broker business. So those all got people's attention.
Very catchy kind of phrase to get some, bring somebody in before you. To keep them engaged in what you're going to say next.
Absolutely. We have somebody who calls himself a treasure hunter and somebody else who calls himself a flying gourmet. And of course, everyone wants to know what that means.
What is that? What is that? What does that look like?
Right.
And so it's really important to perfect your elevator speech.
Yes, it is.
Practice it and make sure you have it ready to go, because you never know.
Right.
And then you mentioned you don't know if it's going to be someone at the grocery store or going up in the elevator. You'd have to feel comfortable saying it.
You do.
Right.
You absolutely do.
What are some tips if someone doesn't feel comfortable? What are some things that you would say to a job seeker?
Well, one thing I've encouraged them to do is to come to our job club or any job club. That's really a safe space for people to practice and perfect and refine their messages, as well as try out different messages, especially if you're going to something like a job club on a regular basis. You don't want to say the same thing week in and week out.
Right.
People could also meet with somebody like myself individually to kind of do a dry run, practice it on me, get some feedback, just like they might do a mock interview.
And it's good to, you know, if you have to look in the mirror and maybe see how it's coming across, your body language, do you feel comfortable? Did you come across feeling comfortable saying that?
Absolutely. And some people use their smartphones and record themselves and hear how they sound and what they might change, because we often aren't aware of everything we're doing if we're adding a lot of ums in what we're saying.
I'm guilty of that myself.
Me too.
So it's really important to practice your elevator speech. One other thing, I just want to get real quick back to the handbill. We just have just a second. But what's the difference between a resume and a handbill again? Just to kind of
Right.
that.
A resume is more extensive and it's about where you've been. Whereas a handbill is about where you're going.
You
and
can't
what you're looking
say
for.
that enough, right?
Right, exactly.
Sarah, we are out of time. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Up next, Kristin Eccles on what to expect from the interviewing process. We'll be right back after these important service announcements.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Good things happen at the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. Experience more than 25,000 acres where native plants and animals make their home. Discover the scenic beauty of over 60 forest preserves containing forests, prairies, and wetlands. Explore the wonder of changing seasons along 145 miles of trails. Get outside and discover the good things that happen when you visit DuPage Forest Preserves. The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, where good things happen.
Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center. And joining me at the table is Kristin Eccles, currently a realtor for Baird & Warner and a former vice president for market research firm. So Kristin, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Please share a little bit about your background with our viewing audience.
Sure. I've held several vice president positions with market research firms in the food and beverage industry, where I was responsible for hiring the sales force throughout the United States and South America.
Okay, and so in this role, you hired hundreds of people.
Hundreds of interviews. Yes, I have conducted hundreds of interviews.
So you have lots of stories you could share, I'm sure.
Yes.
So how important is that interview process? Let's just start with that.
For me or for the candidate themselves? Oh, yes, extremely important, because that's the only time you're going to be able to make an impression on that potential job opportunity. So it's of utmost importance that you're completely prepared and ready to roll when that curtain goes up.
It is critically important. One shot, you got to be able to do it. So how does one become prepared? What do they do?
It's extremely important to go online. Obviously, everybody needs to be Googling like crazy and figuring out everything possible about the company that they're going to be interviewing for and the person that's going to be interviewing them. They need to find out potentially what type of interview those companies are giving, whether it's a directional interview, whether it's a behavioral interview, a lot of different interview types so that you can prepare for those specific circumstances.
So let's talk a little bit about the different interview types. Directional interview, what is that?
So directional interview would kind of be what you and I are doing here right now, where you're sitting across the table from one individual. A behavioral interview would be potentially one individual or others, where they're asking you questions to see how you're going to react in a certain situation. They're going to give what-if scenarios rather than ask you specific questions about your past experiences.
And those behavioral interviews, the way I understand those, oftentimes you're asked the same question, maybe 2 or 3 different ways to see if you're answering it correctly. Is that correct?
That's
or
very
answering
correct.
it the same. I don't know if correct is the right word.
Yeah, answering it the same, or to make sure that you're really being yourself and being honest in your answers.
So behavioral questions are a little bit harder, right?
Yes.
You really need to really prepare for those.
They're a lot harder, and they're becoming more and more popular. So it is pretty easy to go online and find some common behavioral questions.
Can you give us 1 or 2 that?
Sure. For example, let's say you had a conflict with a coworker. You know, how would you handle that situation? Would you go to your supervisor? Would you try and maybe take the person out for lunch and resolve it between the two of you? You know, would you gossip about it to other colleagues? You know, what would you do in that situation?
Right. So it's really important to make sure you practice that answer, because you don't want to be trying to figure it out when you're in the middle of it.
Exactly, especially when nerves are going on and things. So yeah.
And another one that may come up, another behavioral-based question that may come up.
Say that you had an irate client on the phone, for example. How would you handle that situation?
Okay, so it's really important to know those things. So again, preparing for the interview means you need to research the company, Google the people that you're going to be interviewing with, find them on LinkedIn, right?
Correct.
What are some other tips?
Yeah, even diving deeper into that, maybe finding out if you have something in common with the person that's interviewing you. Maybe you like the same sports team, or you went to the same school, for example. Those little insights can really help guide you when you meet the person and have some small talk when you're, you know, right before the interview starts.
And how much small talk should you be willing to put out there? So if you are, you know, you find out the person likes the Cubs, are you going to spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about that? Or is it just, you know, my name is Kim, and oh, by the way, I read that, you know, you are a Cubs fan, or leave it at that, or?
Yeah, really subtle. In fact, maybe finding somewhere during the interview to throw that in and talk about, hey, it's kind of like if you were a first baseman for the Cubs, you know, da-da-da-da-da, you know, throw it in there where it's kind of nonchalant.
Yeah. And so what are some other things they should do as far as
preparation? Yeah, definitely prepare. I know we were just speaking earlier about your elevator pitch. You know, prepare to talk about yourself, because usually the first question you get asked is, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. So make sure that you have that 30-second pitch, you know, and that you feel comfortable with it and you're not stumbling over it.
And what should they share? And what is too much to share?
Too much to share is pretty much just rambling on to the point where, you know, I hate to say it, but a lot of times I would be sitting there And I almost would just be tuned out because the person was just going and going and going. So, you know, a little bit about your background, where, you know, where you've worked, what interests you have, what you're looking forward to in the future career-wise. You know, just a good 30 seconds to maybe a minute, minute and a half, depending on where you are in your career.
Right. And what are some things that folks should not share that perhaps you've heard during the interview process? For instance, about their family, kids.
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope when you start talking a little bit more on the personal side of things than professional. Again, sometimes you might see that the person that's interviewing you has a big family, maybe you do too, and that's something you have in common. But you need to be really, really careful, because you never know what that other person is going to think when you share something about, oh, hey, I'm looking forward to having 2 or 3 kids down the line. You don't know what their thought process is, whether they see that positive.
You don't want to talk yourself out of a job.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are some other things that you've heard that perhaps people should not share?
Probably asking questions, for example, about previous supervisors or conflicts that they've had. You know, you should share some information, but really you should never criticize anyone or anything. That's an extremely important tip, that if anyone takes something away today, that would be.
Do not do that, because it could come back.
It does, and it just a bad reflection on you at the end of the day, even if you were not the one in the wrong.
Okay, so they've prepared for the interview. Now, during the interview, what are some things to remember throughout the interview process?
It's extremely important, like I mentioned, when the curtain goes up. The curtain goes up the minute you walk in that door. You're not even in front or in an interview yet. It's extremely important. A lot of times I would ask the receptionist to just be on the lookout and tell me what they thought about the person.
We tell our clients that. I don't think they believe us, but yes.
Oh, I absolutely did, because I really, really trusted her. And I mean, a lot of times she would tell me right away, oh my goodness, you know, this is going to be a fun one, that type of thing. But, you know, be on your best behavior. Don't be on your cell phone in the lobby. You know, be respectful of everybody that you meet. Don't be, you know, adjusting things, or if you're female, putting on lipstick or whatever you might be doing. You know, be there and be ready. During the interview process, definitely maintaining eye contact is extremely important. Not talking too much. Believe it or not, a good interview is when the person who's interviewing you is speaking more than you are.
And I've said that before too.
Yes.
But why is that? Because oftentimes job seekers may not believe that. They think they should talk more.
People enjoy talking about themselves and talking about the company. And if they're comfortable with you and they feel that they've built a rapport with you, they're going to share that information with you.
At what point during that interview could one think, oh, this is going well? And what might one think if it's not going so well? And what are some of the signs someone may see if the interview is going well or not going so well?
Yeah, if the interview is going well, usually there, again, a lot of direct eye contact and interest on the part of the interviewer. And when it's not going well, again, usually asking the person who's being interviewed if they have any questions, not really asking them any more specific questions, kind of just going through the basics and getting ready to finish the interview, kind of that quick thing. Yeah.
And if you're talking more than them, you also, I guess, would know that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now, after the interview, what are some things that someone should follow up with?
Well, it's extremely important once the questions have been finished and you're finishing up the process. I tell this time and time again to folks: ask for the job if you want it. If you.
So how would you do that?
Literally just say, you know what, Kim, I enjoyed this process. This is a company I have been wanting to work for my entire career. I know I could do this job. I have X, Y, and Z skills after we've been discussing. I'm here to ask you for the job. Just be straight out
and do it.
Yeah, straight up and do it.
Kind of rehash some of the things you just talked about and bring that back into the fold as you're asking for the job.
Yes. Yes, so definitely asking for the job is extremely important. And then a thank you note, which I know a lot of people yawn with the thank you note, but I will tell you, in my experience, I've received thank you notes. And again, if you know about the person a little bit more than others, you might have an edge in with a thank you note too, and adding a little something personal into the thank you note. Even a follow-up phone call just with a voicemail, but doing something different. Because at the end of the day, for the most part, when that person walks out, I know, or the interviewer knows, if they're going to move forward to the next step with that person or not. And that thank you note is just kind of
kind of an extra
icing.
thing.
It's icing on the cake. And if you have two candidates that are really, really close and you can't really make a decision, sometimes you might use that post-interview follow-up to make your decision.
So thank you note could be clearly a handwritten note.
Yes.
What do you think about an email thank you?
I think it's lazy.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion, but millennials and my age group, I just think it's lazy. I think that we're missing that personal touch to go the extra mile, to take the time to do that, to put a stamp on it, to put it in,
Yeah. Would it be okay to send both? So that immediate thank you, I appreciate the opportunity, and then as soon as you get home, you're writing out that handwritten note. So now they're going to get an email, plus they'll get
that. I think that's
note.
perfectly
Is that
fine. Absolutely.
Not too much.
Not too much.
Okay.
No.
What about, I just want to talk a little bit about phone screens. What's your thought on, I know a lot of companies are moving to phone screens now. How does one conduct a phone screen? Because we tell our clients different things in terms of stand up when you're talking, your voice projects differently. What are your thoughts on the phone interview, if you will?
Well, it sounds like you're even more sophisticated than I was back when I was doing it. But we did a lot of Skype interviews, especially when I had Latin American candidates, so I wasn't having to fly down there all the time. I think, you definitely should sit up, right, and project yourself well and still look professional, wear, muted or neutral colors, and, speak clearly. Those things
you really do look, when you're doing a Skype interview, you're checking the block on not only what they're saying, but also kind of their presentation.
Absolutely, and also what's behind them, or what you hear. Is there a dog barking? What's physically behind them? It should be a neutral background.
Right. Yeah. What are some common mistakes that you've seen throughout your career with folks that have interviewed?
Probably the biggest ones, and it's something so simple, is the way people dress. The minute they walk in that door, you're
making that judgment. Yeah.
You're making that judgment. I hate to say it, but you really are. Yeah. So if you're questioning yourself, is this appropriate or not? More than likely it's not.
Right.
I always told folks who reported to me the same thing as far as professional dress. That was a big mistake I saw. Talking too much, obviously. Fidgeting was another one. Fidgeting, I noticed the little ticks and things.
Yeah.
You
So
notice
really
that. You don't focus on what they're saying.
Right. I real quick, I talk to young folks when they're looking for jobs at like a Target or something, and I'll say, go in with the red shirt and the khaki pants, because that's what they wear. Right.
Excellent idea.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on Career Center and for sharing your knowledge of the interviewing process with our job seekers. I also want to thank Sarah Breithaupt for joining me on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you're unemployed, underemployed, or seeking a career change, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Diehl Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web at www.communitycareercenter.org to learn more about the resources available to you as you search for your next success. Thanks so much for watching.